Thank you, sir. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would, follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Fenton.
Here.
Denham.
Here.
Cooper. Here. Milton.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Howden.
Here.
LeBlanc.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Our agenda tonight, we're going to review the Chamber of Commerce 2023 draft marketing plan and proposed budget, and presented by Jason Ottman. Hello, Jason.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, geez.
Morning.
I just kind of reset the day. I hope you guys didn't get anything good accomplished today because I just reset it. So I'll give you a second chance to do it. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Board. Thank you for taking the opportunity to meet with me. And fortunately, Rachel is at a marketing and communications conference in Norfolk, Virginia right now. So she's learning some great things that hopefully she'll bring back. But so you're stuck with me today, and hopefully I can do as good as she could in terms of presenting it. But I really would like this to be a discussion and how we present this today. So there's a couple ways that I'm going to present this. As you know, there was a short time frame in terms of really putting together a plan for 23 just because of by the time we've got the contract signed and everything. So what we have done for 23 that we'll be presenting today, and part of this is in conjunction with also what the TCD approved. So we've been using a 3-year marketing plan for that was 21, 22, 23. I'm sorry, 20, 21, 22. For this year, we have extended that plan for 1 year because Rachel wrote a $100,000 grant that we'll use around the summer, early fall, where we'll hire a consultant to come in and help us with our next 3-year marketing plan. And then inside of that plan will be a more detailed component for the city, as well as, again, for the TCD on that side as well. So what we've done is we've essentially taken an extension of the plan we've been using for 3 years for 23, and then we added an addendum to the plan based on what the board had asked for in our previous conversations and in the contract, how to use the tourism tax dollars. And so I'll be presenting that today, as well as a very anemic draft budget for how those dollars will be spent. And again, hopefully out of this, we'll be able to have some discussion. Any references that would be a change to what we're presenting today, I will have to take back to the MLC for further discussion, and then we can bring it back. And I know we just talked earlier about when we could come back for the final approval of the plan. Again, this is the draft. And then any discussion will be taken back to the MLC. So a couple layouts there and how I plan to present this today. Before I get started, I do have some awesome news. So we have officially crossed 10 million visitors. So Jerry Henry and H2R sent over. It's not even a final number yet. He's still finalizing some details from December, but we're currently sitting at 10.2 million visitors for 22. Last year, if you remember, we had 9.96. And so we actually were able to grow quite a bit in the 22 years. So we're excited about that. And I know since I've been here, I'm not taking any credit for it, but just as a reference, we came in at 9.1 and now we're hovering around 10.2. So it's been a really awesome few years for the city and for this region. So we're excited about that. All right. Okay, so the first thing that I want to discuss on the addendum, we currently run a theater co-op marketing plan. Maybe I need to restart the day. It is stumbling already with my words. A co-op marketing plan with the theaters that's been very successful for the year and a half that we've been running it. We run that program through the TCD. It's about $300,000. We've had a discussion, how can we expand that program with the city dollars themselves. And so without complicating things in terms of needing to go back to the TCD and asking if we could also carry over a theater plan to the city plan, what we decided was to come up with the same plan, but for the attractions that reside within the city of Branson. So we would still have the theater plan. I know there's been some questions out there about that. We're still going to do the theater co-op marketing program with the TCD money, $300,000 with the match. And then we would like to propose with the city money doing a $300,000 attractions co-op program. Same, focusing on search engine marketing. So really helping the attractions within the city limits of Branson help capture their keywords that we know maybe they don't quite have the money to purchase, or they're being purchased by possibly timeshares or just other individuals that are really out there trying to capture the words that people search for in the Branson region. This would allow them to put money into the program. So if this is going to be a bad example, because I know Mary Kellogg would try to buy all of it if she had the opportunity, but if Mary wanted to put in $25,000, we would match it at $25,000, so a total commitment of $50,000 for her to repurchase the keywords for Titanic and really help drive the revenue for that program. With the theater program, again, the exact same program is what we're recommending for the attractions. We have gotten feedback from those theaters that have done it that has been really good. I know one theater had mentioned that their ticket sales were up 165%. Through the use of that program, and I think they did it for like a 6-month period. So that's one of the theaters that's calling us daily saying, when are we going to start the program again? So we're excited to get that out there. Again, it is keyword search engine marketing, not organic. This is specifically paid words that we would put into play for those attractions. Hopefully, now weather has messed us up a little bit. We would have already liked to have had the meetings in place, so we'll have to push back a little bit. So instead of a February meeting with the attractions and a launch in March, we might have to push that back to a March meeting with the April launch, depending on how quickly we can put things together upon approval. So that's one of the first things that we would like to recommend. And again, that is directly impacting the attractions that reside within the city limits of Branson. The next section, promote the businesses within Branson. Obviously, this is a generic keyword.
Excuse me, Jason.
Yes.
Did you want to finish, and then we'll ask questions at the end, or would you like us to ask questions along the way?
Mr. Mayor, however you'd like to do it, whatever. I mean, if you want to keep to each bullet, that's fine, so you don't have to.
We'll come back to this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The next strategy, and again, so the way that we write our marketing plans, again, they're strategies with written objectives. It's not exactly how we're going to carry it out. It's the strategy with the objective. How we carry it out is then when we get into where we will buy the TV commercials, where we will buy the radio, that function, but that's not a part of the plan. That's actually the actions that we put into place. The next strategy, again, promote the businesses within the city of Branson. Obviously, that's generic, and that's taking the language that we added into our contract to make sure that, we're abiding by what we put into the contract. We feel that we've got several ideas on how we could do this. I know when we had previously spoke about this, we had mentioned because we do run our commercials for 2 years. This is the second year of the commercials that we created last year. We could specifically for this year, and again, a lot of this will change when we get into 24. It's just we're already in 23. A lot of this was such short timing. But when we run those commercials, we could take out of those commercials, like I mentioned before, where we're only billing to the city those components of the commercial that are the city. So if we're doing the family fun commercial and 20 seconds is more like Silver Dollar City in the Lake and 10 seconds is the city, then we would bill the city for 10 seconds and then bill TCD for the other 20 seconds. So trying to make sure that we've got that money that's being used by the city to, again, focus on those attractions. We also can really look at, when we're building out the digital format and how we can target those individuals that we know are specific to the city limits, the stuff that's within the city limits. Instead of targeting, a lake lover with the lake being, outside the city limits or parts of it. So I guess that gets complicated in that area. But, we can make sure that we're not putting the city dollars into targeting those individuals, but that, we're using it to target, those that, want to go to the theaters, those that want to do the attractions, those that want to go shopping, those that are looking for, the culinary scene and those things. So we can really build out digitally and target it specifically so we know that the dollars aren't being spent on items that might be outside, the city of Branson. So again, that's when you get into the specifics of it, not necessarily the plan that I'm presenting today, but the actual specifics of how the dollars would be spent. Include Ozark Mountain Christmas. We started this year. From what I've seen, we had a great Christmas season, and from the conversations that I've had, it looks like everything went pretty well. I know tax collections were really good over the December, especially December season. But we obviously will make sure that when we're marketing Ozark Mountain Christmas, which we are this year, moving up, starting it earlier. We started marketing Christmas last year, I believe October 28th. This year we're moving it up to, I believe it's October 9th. So we will start earlier this year to market the Christmas season. And then again, per the conversations that we've had and with the contract, we'll make sure on the advertising that we have the dates in there for what the Ozark Mountain Christmas season is. All right, and then the second page for the addendum specifically for the city, including the faith family flag is one of the key appeals for the city. So one way that we're looking at doing this, and I know I've had a brief conversation with a couple of you. I know Clay, me and you had a conversation one time after our board meeting, a brief conversation. I think we still feel, the MLC feels, and we feel that we probably still need to define this exactly. What exactly we're doing with the faith family flag, how exactly are we going to define that? I know we've had some questions from individuals on the MLC, does this mean that we're putting, crosses in the advertising, or is it something that's more of a feeling, like we're promoting a feeling that you get, a sense of feeling when you come to the Branson area. So I think that this still needs to be defined. But one of the ways that we're looking at pushing this out is, creating a persona. So when we do our marketing, you've kind of heard me mention this before, but we build out personas like the empty nesters, for instance. In the fall season, we had a campaign that specifically targeted empty nesters to drive them during that slow period, end of August, September, and really push forth with the empty nesters. So we want to build out a persona that would go after the same individuals that are focused on that faith family flag, just like we do with empty nesters, or just like we do with backpackers. Homeschool families, we build those personas out, and then so digitally, when we're putting our money in, we know that we can target this group specifically with the message that we've designed that will appeal to them and will attract them. And how do we do that? And so most of that will be done again digitally, because we know we can specifically target that instead of doing something like a traditional television commercial that just gets kind of put out there and it blasts and any eyeball can see it. This way we know that we can, target it specifically to those individuals that are looking for that. Within doing this, we'll look at doing new creative and really developing that. Is it finding a sense of, I always reference this when I talk about this, but and I always forget her name. But there's an older lady that works at Clockers, and she's worked there for a long time, and do we do a photo session where she's serving, a younger family, that has kids, and she's showing the level of service and the level of love, to that family. Is that, something that we're doing, from a creative standpoint to really target these individuals? So again, that needs to be defined, but we're hoping that we'll be able to get that truly defined and really put that target out there. And then behind that, we'll do the paid media to really, again, target that individual that is seeking that appeal. And then increase the reach for veterans marketing. So we're really excited about this one, because what we've been talking about doing in the office is we would really like, instead of just that October, November timeframe, we'd really like to start marketing veterans year round. And not only, we've had a lot of discussions with the Veterans Task Force on this as well, because we're running into a few challenges. Right now, a lot of our marketing, and if you look at our photographs and during Veterans Week, obviously we have a lot of the Vietnam veterans. We still want them. Obviously, we love them. We appreciate them coming here, appreciate the sacrifices that they made. in that war, or in some instances, the country still doesn't want to call that a war, but what we really would like to establish is how can we also find the younger ones? How can we find the Iraqi veterans and the Afghani veterans and Desert Storm, and, how are we finding those younger groups? Now, we've been getting feedback that they don't quite have reunions like the Vietnam veterans do. It might be more of a guy's trip, 6, 7, 8 that were in the same platoon together that, might take a guy's trip. That's great, and we want that. How do you reach them? So we've really got to figure out how to reach the younger veterans that don't quite have these big reunions like the Vietnam vets do. But we believe that, by doing it year round, by showing photography of, of a veteran that's with his younger family, and they're here and they're experiencing. And so it's showing the other, veterans with their families that this is a great place to come. It's finding, the veterans that are doing the guys or the gals trip, together. How are we putting that together? In fact, we're working on the group side. We've actually talked about even working with some of the local businesses to create an event. We've been told that some of the younger, veterans love to do like these Spartan events, where they're, it's like a 20-mile run and they're dodging through mud and they're climbing stuff. And, how can we even create an event that attracts them here as a group? And so they come for the event, but then they experience, what the city of Branson has to offer. And so then they become a regular visitor. So that might be a way that we have to attract them, but we think that could be one of the ways of doing it. And so really working with the Veterans Task Force, we've also, I've spoken to a couple individuals. We've got a new lady on the chamber board that works for Branson Bank, and she's got, she sent me a name of somebody that is a young veteran that loves to try to get involved in that stuff. And so we're looking for how can we build that and grow that from a visitation standpoint as well as a group standpoint. How can we get those groups here, again, whether it's a sporting event or whether they actually do have meetings, how can we get the younger veterans here as well without forgetting the Vietnam vets and the handfuls of World War II vets that are still out there. So basically all vets all the time is really what we're looking forward to doing. And again, we would do this, paid advertising. We would, build out the persona. We would work with the different task force that already do it by providing our imagery and our advertising, to push out there to promote the veterans and coming into the Branson market. So, Mr. Mayor, I think so the rest of this is what the current plan is that we're carrying over, not the city of Branson specific. So if you want, before I go through this, just as a refresher, if you want me to pause and discuss the addendums, then we can do that before we kind of get off topic.
I think that'd be healthy.
Okay?
If you go back to the first page.
Yep.
First slide. There's a couple things, and let me start with the bigger picture first. You mentioned that the 2023 marketing plan is already in effect, and one of your comments was, for example, on TV commercials. I think we have a paradigm shift here that we're not on the same page. In my opinion, and what I've heard from some board members, I don't think it makes sense to say, out of the TCED commercials that have already been placed, that the city would only pay for the portion that has to do with the city. TCED, in my opinion, TCED is charged with marketing the district. And the district is 75% Branson. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, TCD would be marketing Branson regardless, out of TCED dollars. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If we didn't have a tourism tax, if
Yeah.
there was no such thing as tourism tax,
Right.
TCD would be marketing the same way they're marketing right now. Would you agree?
Yes and no. Yes,
Okay.
yes, we would be marketing the same way, not in the same, not the same levels that we're currently.
Same volume.
Same volume,
Yeah,
correct.
but the same message.
Correct,
So the,
correct.
so the mindset of let's carve off within TCD's budget, what is city's focus? That doesn't make sense to me, because like I said, the TCD should be marketing Branson out of their marketing dollars anyway. What I heard from this board was, what I just said, TCD should be marketing the district, which includes Silver Dollar City, Shepherd of the Hills, the district,
Right,
and then from the city's generated tourism tax, that would be marketing the entities generating the city's tourism marketing dollars,
right,
right?
right.
Because the more that goes into the city businesses, that generates 100% of that tourism tax. Let's feed that more, and that will generate more revenues.
Right.
So I think we need to really start back at the beginning and not try to divide up what the commercial says or doesn't say.
So that's fine. That's fine. We can do that. So I had emailed you and Kathy. I don't believe I sent it to the board. I think I just sent it to you two. The flow chart that we use for both our traditional television buy and our digital buys. So the way that we have put this together with the MLC, so as a reference, and I apologize because you guys probably don't have this. So as a reference, we have on our traditional television, we've got $2,087,700 is what's being spent. That $2 million, the way that we do our buy with Camelot is all inclusive. So that includes the 1 million from the city and then the 1 million from the TCD. So the 2 million that we're spending on traditional television is already a combined buy of the city and TCD. Now, what I believe we could do, and Rachel will probably kill me for saying stuff like this, and we'll have to talk with again, trying to make sure that we're on the same page here. So I would think that we could probably, so right now our commercials, I know we have one commercial specific that is all Branson business. And that's the theater commercial that we have together, that we've put together. So I think the other ones, just running them through my head, I don't think there's any other one that is just Branson specific. I think there's always a piece of, whether it's a lake or whether it's Silver Dollar City, I think there's always pieces in the other ones. So right now, we have a commercial that's, if the board said, we would like to recommend that the $1 million that you're putting into traditional television, with that money, just run the theater commercial, then that's what we can present back, to the MLC as a recommendation, is because then that way it is just the Branson business. The other commercials aren't. There's segments of them that don't also include something from outside the city. So am I making sense here?
Yeah.
Now the other thing we can do, Mayor, I don't know the dollar amounts on this, so I'm throwing ideas out there, but we would have to go back and see what the dollar amount is. I don't know what it costs for us to produce that commercial. So for us to go back to proof and say we need to create 2 more, commercials for 2023 that are Branson specific, I don't know what that cost is.
Okay, there's a couple things we need to touch on. The cost to produce a commercial. I know traditionally, CVB goes to, Madden, who do we go to for the?
Right now, we're using Proof, the creative agency, correct?
So we go to Creative, and they're out of state, and we spend $400,000 on Creative, right? We as TCD, to come up with a theme to create these commercials.
Right.
Is it realistic to think that out of the tourism tax dollars, there are local entities in Branson that have the capability of creating TV commercials?
I'm going to have to deflect, that entire conversation would have to be had with the MLC. I can't stand here and say that we could do that or not, because we've already vetted out Proof as our creative agency. That would essentially be hiring another new
Okay,
creative agency.
we'll come back to this, but let's talk about, you've mentioned MOC now half a dozen times.
Right, because per our contract, we have to go back to them to review all of the marketing.
Is that what our contract says? Then we probably should revisit the language in the contract. When I read that, it said, this, at least my understanding, was the CVB was going to use MOC as a reference. But there's no relationship between the city's contract with the CVB and obligations of, well, we need to make sure the MOC says this is okay.
That's actually what the contract says. We are to, the board still has obviously the approval. So I'm not saying the MLC will approve it, but in the contract, we are to present with the MLC, the review and then the recommendations to the board, and then it's up to the board to either yay or nay.
So if the board wanted, and when I say the board, you have no interest in serving 7 different masters, right? You get your directions from Kathy. Kathy will get her directions from us.
Right.
But, I mean, I think that's a great example. If Kathy says, we would like to go to Digital Lunchbox or one of the local firms and create a TV commercial and then run those TV commercials, surely you're not saying we need MOC approval to do that. Or are you?
Mayor, can I interject quickly?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we've got Jim Meadows on the line, just in case. I want to make sure Jim, are you there?
He's coming in now.
Thank you.
Yes, Kathy, I am.
Thank you. Could you address the question, please?
Yeah, I think what's actually happening is the CVB and the board are talking past each other and not getting toward each other on what the contract says. So the contract, as it was negotiated, does require that the money that is from the city funds has to be spent at the direction of the city promoting city business. There is a coordination with the overall Taney County group, but ultimately speaking, the contract, at least is the way I read it, and it was negotiated, requires that ultimate authority on how the city-generated funds are spent is the city itself. Now, of y'all were saying was correct, but I think you were missing the other pieces of each other.
Okay, well, that sounded like a lot of legalese.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. I'm struggling with how to explain it simpler. Let me try it this way, Mayor.
Well, Jim, before you do, let me just ask this simple question. If the board, through Kathy, said that the city would like to generate our own TV commercials and run our own TV spots, would that decision need MOC approval?
I don't believe so, no, sir.
No, not approval, just a review and a recommendation.
Okay, because I keep hearing you
Yeah.
say, well, I need to take it to MOC, I need to take it to MOC.
Right, because the way that, and Jim, help me if I'm correct, the way that we wrote that language, the CVB, yes, again, final approval comes from the board. I'm not fighting that at all. But the way that it's written is, like the CVB, we can't just make a decision. So if there was something to be done, we have to have it reviewed by the MLC, then receive final approval from the board.
So if the
I think the
MLC,
way it's written, I don't know if we can just remove the MLC from the equation.
Right, so the MLC can't say yes or say no. Think of it like the House of Lords in England. They really can't change anything, but they can make recommendations and have to be consulted before something goes forward.
Cheerio.
That may not be the best analogy, I'm sorry, that's what popped in my mind.
I think the concern that we would have would be, it almost sounds like running a second marketing campaign. And I don't know if we would feel that Branson is big enough or deserving of a separate marketing campaign. I think the campaign itself should be still the same, just how are we spending the dollars and making that happen?
Is your reason for asking because it could be a lot more affordable if we use someone local to make these spots?
Well, I think it would be much quicker. We have local talent, they understand our local market, and they've made TV commercials.
Well, and I think it would be way more affordable.
Yeah.
And I know a few right offhand that are qualified. I was just curious why
Yeah.
you were asking.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
This is Cody, down here.
Hi,
Me.
Cody.
And, admittedly, I'm not the marketing guru here, but I think the production, as I see it, is one cost of this. So maybe there could be a savings there. But, when I've thought about this and looked at it and heard the discussion, the different presentations, I think, to me, the part that doesn't make sense is to say, okay, well, let's create our own material, our commercials and whatever, and then now we're going to go shop that ourselves and buy our own. We just don't have as much purchasing power if we're not combining it with the other purchases being made, is my 2 cents on it. So yes, we might save money and we could produce a Branson commercial cheaper, but that's just one part of this. And if we say, well, we're going to sever from TCD, MOC, or whatever other alphabet soup we're using here, our buying power is limited, in my opinion. So the statement of we shouldn't run 2 simultaneous marketing campaigns, I agree with that, because I don't think the city dollars that were set aside for this is enough to have the impact on its own.
Yeah, I agree with that. So for some education, who's running our, not production, who's running our TV spots? Who's managing that?
We use Camelot.
Camelot.
Yeah.
So to your point, Cody, so if we went to Camelot and said we still had a $2 million budget and we have 4 commercials, we're going to run these during these times and frequency, and we're going to run these during these frequencies, that would still be fall under the same buying power, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn just because I don't handle that contract, but I would think, because it's still our
Well,
account.
it's what we're
so-
doing now. We've got 3
Yeah.
commercials. You suggested running one of them more often than the other.
Right.
I don't know that, I agree with what you're saying. We don't want to lose any collective buying power, but I don't know that that's what we're discussing. I think we'll maintain that.
Is there, do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it just a matter of creating the commercials? I mean, are you okay with maintaining the same brand? I'm a little nervous about confusing visitors with if we were running 2 separate marketing campaigns. So still running the Your Vacation Needs Branson campaign, but asking for somebody else to shoot the commercial, or just trying to get an understanding.
Could it be different than Your Vacation Needs Branson?
So you would like to run a separate campaign?
The feedback I'm getting is that wasn't received real well.
Okay.
But I'm not the guy.
Yep.
I've heard that to deliver Branson's message versus the message of, this isn't your vacation. And maybe part of it is that difference between, what are the terms? One is product. You're either marketing product or you're marketing,
The destination.
it was 2 terms in that world. So, okay, so I think the first thing I don't know if Jim needs to verify it, but the first thing is, if the board, and this is a board decision, I'd like to hear from other board members. If the board did want to have, because Jason, I think what I would anticipate hearing is if this board said, gosh, I know we have 3, meaning the bucket, has 3 separate commercials, and one is specifically Branson Theaters. So either we run the one Branson Theater more often, or have other commercials that we can put in there. I think we've agreed that that's an option for this board out of the TCD dollars.
Right, right.
Okay, the second thing is the co-op dollars. My understanding is, and I agree with you, last year, the co-op dollars for theaters was 300,000. And my understanding is, when that was first introduced to the theater industry, that money got gobbled up in minutes, right? Everybody wanted to participate.
Right.
Which means there were a lot that were not included.
Right.
Couple that with, I've heard unbelievable results from that co-op plan. So one thing that we've been talking about is, it seems to make sense to dramatically increase that dollar amount, because if it got absorbed within minutes and there's a whole bunch of people still wanting to do it, why wouldn't we increase that theater
Well,
co-op plan?
Again, the theater plan is with the TCD. So let me first say, for us to be able to carry it over to the city also doing a theater co-op, I would need the TCD for approval
Okay.
on that.
Could we get the TCD to agree, they're gonna continue their existing plan, but out of the tourism tax dollars, we're gonna add $300,000 to an existing campaign, so you guys can
Right.
just double what you've already, what you've
Yeah,
been
no,
doing?
and I don't have an issue with that. I'm just saying, I just need to make sure that, because I've talked with one of the TCD board members in the past, when we first started talking about this a year and a half ago,
Yeah,
and they had mentioned, well, that's our campaign. They'd love to get the compliments out of that campaign. So, again, I don't have any issues doing that, Mayor, trust me. I just want to make sure I ask the question, instead of me standing here and saying
it's not,
on
this
their
is
behalf.
not an us versus them.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
they
No,
want
yeah.
if they want the credit, I'd be curious who that was. If they want the credit, they can have all the
Right.
credit in the world. We're
Right.
just trying to do more of something that this market has
Yeah.
said that is working.
Yeah,
and
no
we-
issues at all with that.
We
yeah.
brought that very question up to Derek
Yes.
back here in the meeting,
Yep.
and he said, absolutely, I mean, yeah, we'd be all about it. I mean, why
Okay.
would, so,
So,
I mean, you
and
can
I
ask
haven't
him,
had that conversation with Derek, so knowing
because
that's
I knew
great.
you brought that up in a concern once before, and
Yeah.
I brought that up to Derek, hey, would you mind, because there was some concern that we'd be stepping on your toes if we did this. He's like, absolutely not, I'm all, yeah,
Okay,
so,
that's great.
I mean, am I speaking out of turn, I mean, right, Kurt?
So do you all still want the attraction component, or just to put it all into?
Oh, no.
the
I
thea-
think we doubled the theater.
Okay.
Was there any other suggestions other than doubling it?
I don't know, we talked, you talking about a value?
Dollar amount.
Mr. Mayor,
I've heard several different dollar
Yeah, I have
amounts.
too.
I think it'd be edifying for the board. Tim Haygood is here to hear on how effective that program was. Just briefly, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, Tim?
Tim, you want to share for
Not to
just?
call you out, but
Thank you, Marshall. And Tim, as you address this, if you would, maybe provide some of your input on, because I've heard different dollar figures also, but I've heard doubling it was just a no-brainer, as far as doubling the dollar amount of co-op.
Sure. Well, we want to double ours, and I'll just go ahead and share it.
Okay.
We were at 25,000, and we want to double to 50,000, which would mean that we're just one show, and we're asking for another 50,000 to be put into that. So you can do and we're just the first show that's saying, hey, let's do this. But for us, it was a massive win. We were up 71% on our website, which is huge. I know the chamber has a lot of things that they can do. They have tons of choices, they've got to make as far as how they spend these dollars. But this is the most successful program in the entire history of our show that we've ever been here. In all 20 years we've been on the Strip. So I had a whole deal written out here, but I would just like to highly encourage as much money as possible to be thrown at this. I'm not here as a representative of all the shows, but I have spoken with everybody. And what you said about the show that was up 160%, I know he's talking about it, that is correct. And all of the shows have similar stories. They're all saying exactly the same thing. So you can take your money and you can put it on TV commercials, and it's kind of nebulous, you might get things to happen, or you can put it directly into the shows. And we're not just trying to intercept our own names. We're also advertising all of Branson. So it's not just going to making sure that tickets get sold directly to us. It's helping the entire town. But it's also not just about making sure that the show business industry is healthy and making sure that, as you talked about adding the attractions component, it's also making sure that tax dollars flow the way that they need to. Because, if I sell a ticket on my website for $50 and I'm paying taxes on $50, that's very different than the other scenarios.
And the point you just made, I think that moves the needle, right? If you can start, and when I say start paying tax, our taxes are driven by your success, right? So the success of your theater selling a $50 ticket versus selling it wholesale, you make more money, and then in turn, more money goes to the city.
Correct.
And then in turn, there's more money for more marketing,
Correct.
right?
And there's more money for production, there's more money for billboards, there's more money to build new things, and produce new shows and LED screens, just to make it bigger and better.
So instead of us coming up with an arbitrary number, I know you're going to double it. There's others that are going to double it. So maybe we go to the experts, because we will reach a point of diminishing returns. I don't know where that is. The early numbers that you showed, Clay and I and Lisa, it seemed to me that there was a huge margin of how many more click-through rates that this campaign has received. So it seemed to me like there's a lot of room for more absorption just to get us back to the national average, right? So I don't know if that number is 600,000 or 900,000. So if we can, let's leave this conversation that we would like to at least, through TCD, we'd like to match their dollars and see if we can get some guidance of, and should we go north of that? Tim, you agree with that, or you have other input on that?
I think that would be amazing. We had a Zoom call with 18 shows a week ago, just talking about this exact matter, just so that we could all get on the same page. And as I said, I'm not a official representative, just here to try and help, but every single one of them said that this thing was a huge win. I mean, there was some issues, but what they came up with in this program that they implemented was absolute genius. And I mean, when you talk about everybody saying, I think the lowest figure we heard was maybe 25% up on their website. I mean, ours was 70%.
Which is amazing.
That's a ton of money that's coming back to the city.
That's amazing.
And the TCED.
So can we also agree that as we're working through these points and working through, I know we haven't got to the budget part yet, but instead of waiting on this one topic, can we agree that that the city's willing to pull the trigger on the co-op for theater and the co-op for attraction as we're working through the other items?
I mean, that would be extraordinary.
Well, Tim, and I've heard this from several, same
Yeah.
message, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was 18 theaters that were on the call. There wasn't a single one that said they weren't interested. And as a matter of fact, there's a whole list of feedback that they wanted to give to the chamber. Rachel has a Zoom call set up on Friday for everyone to directly address her and give her that exact feedback as far as how Madden did. I know there was a little bit of frustration. It definitely wasn't with the CVB. Like I said, this whole thing was genius, I believe. And it just has to continue and to grow. There are some things that can be improved, and we can give them that feedback at another time, but Rachel is on it, and she's going to talk to everybody here in a couple of days.
That is excellent.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredibly encouraging. I'm not a political guy. I don't like, I just like doing my thing, over at Clay's Theater. But I just felt so strongly about this, and it had just such a profound impact on us. I mean, this is one of the first winters that we're looking at expanding rather than having to, hold on to money because of all the extra money that came through because of what this program that they've offered.
Yeah, see,
And
that is
it's,
so great to hear.
And we actually already committed to doubling it, and there was a little bit of money left over from January and February that a few of the shows were able to get anyone that was interested. So we've already actually doubled what we're doing in January and doubling what we're doing in February. And our results are, as of today, I just looked at it before I came up here, we've doubled our budget, and our sales on our website are up 111%. As of today, January 1 through today. And the only change that we made was by doubling our budget with Madden and doubling the budget with the CVB, as far as the match. Yeah, and those are direct results, and I just can't tell you how profound a change that is. I mean, this program could essentially transform the health of the entire show business industry. Everybody is always saying, hey, we need a big 90s country music star to come in here and save the show business industry. We don't need saving. You have incredible shows already here. Just invest directly in us. And you have, and it's been incredible.
Yeah,
So-
and I compliment Madden or whoever the brainchild was of coming up with that.
Oh, I think it's revolutionary. I mean, I think
Was
that,
this you?
I think it's realities are going to follow it. I've spoken with some people in Pigeon Forge who had questions about it because they're hearing, hey, this is really working. But yeah, I mean, I just want to, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, because I know the mayor.
Did you get the mic?
Tim, out of curiosity, the mayor and I have talked about this a couple times. Has anybody in the show industry mentioned what they would even like to see beyond SCM? I know we've talked possibly about, digital billboards in different markets, where we can control the message. So like, you're doing your one show and then in the Christmas time, you're promoting your Christmas show because again, obviously digital, you can change it whenever you want to change it. So I don't know if anybody's mentioned anything besides just SCM that they would like to see with the co-op, because we have talked about, to your point, Mayor, when we have talked about at what point do we saturate SCM, what's the next step so that it doesn't die?
Yeah, I think that, just to give you an example, 89% of the hits on our website are now coming from an iPad or from a mobile phone. There's no such thing as desktop anymore. I mean, everything is here. And so anything that we can do, and it is just what I hear from the other shows, to focus on mobile and to focus on socials is huge, because that's where everything is coming from now. And this program is an example. All you did is throw cash at it, put the right message where it needs to be, and there was an instant impact with the shows. So I would just say, anything you can do, and this is what a lot of the other shows have said, is just to focus on mobile, because everything is happening right there. Everyone's trying to make their ticket systems flow smoothly on mobile, to make sure that the money that's being invested flows smoothly, in every direction. The process can be completed, right there on their phones. But we are just seeing such a huge amount of people using their phones versus anything else. It just doesn't exist. Desktop is basically done. So I would say that anything that the chamber can do, I mean, I know you're talking about traditional media and television commercials. In my case, my house only has Netflix. And I know you've talked about, or maybe already are running commercials for streaming. Everybody that I know does not. I don't know anyone that has traditional TV anymore. So if there's ads being run on, Fox News or whatever, everyone I know has Netflix. And that's where, and their phone. I mean, TikTok is brand new. We're spending a ton of money advertising on TikTok this year and experimenting with it. And you say, well, it's just a bunch of kids, they're just clicking through. Well, actually, the average audience is much older than you would think. There's a ton of 30, 40-year-old moms on there that are buying tickets. We're seeing exact results come from TikTok back to there. So anything you can do to jump on that would help. But I would say everything is mobile now.
Very good. Thank you, Tim, for contributing.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys. Amazing work. Thank you all. Yeah.
Before we move on, any other board input? Yep.
Jason, let's talk about faith for a second.
Yeah.
My favorite topic. So it's my contention that the entirety of Western civilization was built upon faith. I think you could take any landmark in this country, be it the Alamo was a Christian mission, or you drive up and down the Pacific Coast Highway and you see missions. And every part of our story is built upon that, right? So when we talk about, do we put a cross in there, do we have to be that explicit, I guess my thought on that is I think the term faith in and of itself is a good moniker. The idea, it is specific. People know what you're talking about, but it's kind of broad enough kind of thing. But even then, I mean, we do have a giant cross. That's one of the first things you see as you come into Branson. There's an incredible, over behind the mansion, there's an incredible shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Sight and Sound has got some incredible, so I think you could certainly include some of those things in the messaging and in the, commercials. And I think even to what Tim was saying, if something does run on Fox News, perhaps you gear it towards an older demographic, quite frankly, I think we can put our heads together and we can really find ways to kind of blend faith into how we tell our story, because I think that's sort of what marketing is at the end of the day, is sort of telling our story, even in so that it evolves and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, and I know Courtney and I have had brief discussions, and I know Sight and Sound has volunteered as just one of, the groups that is willing to, again, how do we define that?
Yeah.
Making sure that, we're defining it the right way. And it's been interesting just to have various conversations. Again, not to bring up, my past, but I am a born-again Christian. I know it's been questioned, but I am a born-again believer. Sometimes you look at things differently in marketing, but we have, some of the conversations I've even had people say faith can mean so much to even a different, from one Christian to the next, a Pentecostal to a Baptist, that faith could even be different, so how do we do it so that we are making sure we're not even offending a certain, person of faith, and making sure that that message gets out there the right way. So absolutely, we just got to figure out how exactly to do that. And I know, like I said, I know that a couple people have mentioned, that sometimes even just the sense of belonging and the sense of feeling that you can put through your messaging, that sometimes that's even showing a level of faith that a community provides.
Yeah, and so in addition to faith, wholesome family values, right? It's just the basics, the basics of who we as a country in the Midwest, who we are as a country. And it really is. And it has, faith is the foundation to that. And then the wholesomeness, the family, the flag. I think that's up for the marketing guys to say, here's how to deliver that message. But I believe that's what this board is saying, is that's really a strong message.
Yeah.
And while we're on this, and I've had a couple conversations, so I don't know if we can reach an agreement, but what we've talked about in the past from this board has been faith, family, flag. I've had some ask if we would want to, since we're in the early stages, amend that to faith, family, flag, and fun. Any interest of adding fun to that?
Do we want to have fun?
No?
no, we're not allowed.
And Mr. Mayor, a lot of this is, I think we believe kind of even falls in. The family fun that we're doing right now, the imagery we're using in that sense, I feel like that is wholesome family fun that we're already presenting.
I agree, 100%.
So I think some of it already is being
The word family is fun. I mean, they go hand in hand.
Right.
So when you hear us, or you've read in the past where this board has said faith, family, flag, it's really faith, family, flag, and fun.
Yeah, okay.
Any other aldermen? Ralph, you're being awfully quiet. You're good? You guys good?
So going back
Yeah.
real quick, sorry. Wait, well, I guess we could talk when we get to the budget. Keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
I don't think we need, especially with the time.
Don't need to recap the
You've
old
sent
marketing
this to
plan?
the entire board, so
Yep,
we know
yep.
what the quote TCED marketing plan is.
Yeah, okay. Do you have it on here to jump to the budget discussion real quick? So again, just as a draft, this was how we recommended. So obviously, we're already talking about making one change. So for the co-op, if we put 300 to match the theater, would you still like to see 300 for the attractions?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure I get that right.
And when we've talked about this in the past, this particular slide, I was really looking for more detail. Those are pretty generic, like dues and sponsorships
Yep.
is 400,000. That's 10% of the budget.
So I've got here,
You have a break of each one of these line items.
okay, so Samantha said, after we had chatted, I tried to go back and get some additional information from them. Bear with me one second here. Okay, so for the dues and sponsorships, we've got, so for meetings specifically, we are hosting 2 events next year. One is Religious Conference Management Association. We're hosting their Midwest meeting. And then we are also hosting a meeting with Connect. And so part of the dues and sponsorships covers the cost of hosting those meetings in the market. And that Religious Conference Manager one, the people that will be attending that specifically are the meeting managers for religious events, which I know Sam, we've talked before about how we can increase the meetings and conventions aspect that are specific to the religious market. So we're bringing those meeting planners into market. And so that's part of the dues and sponsorships is to pay for those 2 events.
Okay, then we go back to the big picture. Are those specific sponsorships something that TCED would not do?
I think the reason that Samantha put those into the city was because they're being held at the convention center, so it's directly affecting the revenue for the city.
Again, it begs the question, it is directly benefiting the city. It is equally directly benefiting TCED, right? In my mind, there's that paradigm I'm really struggling with.
Not necessarily, because remember, if the city product collects a 4% tourism tax, they do not collect the 1% sales tax.
That's not true. Everybody that comes to
I have
the
the
city.
state language right here, and Derek has even explained that. If you pay the 4%, it gets knocked down 25% per percent. So it removes the 4%, the 1% doesn't get collected.
That's not true, I'm sorry. What you're referring to is from the restaurants, I believe.
Well, so what I meant was if they're staying at the Hilton, because you said it would benefit TCD, if they're staying at the Hilton, that money doesn't go to the TCD, that goes to the city.
That's correct.
Yes, if they go shopping at Belk or they go to Tanger, yes, that also benefits the TCD as
And
well. So
according-
a lot of times we're saying the same thing, just in different language.
No, and that's really a good example. That's really a great example.
It's really confusing if you read
Well,
through all of it.
But you know, and we haven't had the opportunity to verify it, but
Yeah.
when Gary Groman ran those numbers, the 1% I call it a retail tax, just to try to keep it
Yeah.
more
it's-
clear, because it
yeah.
is a tax on retail.
Right,
Some figure 80% of the retail tax that goes to TCED is generated from businesses located within the city limits of Branson.
Right.
So when somebody goes, we're saying the same thing, when somebody
Yeah.
goes to the convention center and they stay at the hotel, the TCED doesn't receive any money from that hotel stay.
right.
So my question is.
They do
would-
restaurant and shopping.
So would TCED, out of their marketing budget, would they want to spend the money on this dues and sponsorships?
Well, and I know Cindy Mary is in here because I think that's one we've talked about quite a bit on the TCD side because I don't have it in front of me, but I think that dues and sponsorship line item with TCD is already like $1 million. So it wasn't it wasn't or, it wasn't like it's in TCD or it's in the city. It was we've already got this one paying here, and because this one is at the convention center, let's put it here. So there's a large amount of money going to pay for these events, which is why I think we're seeing the convention center actually turning profits now, is with all the events that are outside of the great work that ASM Global does. But because we're paying for more of these events to really get them into the market.
Okay,
And so the other component to that dues and sponsorships is the sports side, which is the money that we do for power boats down here on Taney-Como, the Babe Ruth Cal Ripken World Series, the Sports Express Conference, the Cornhole event, which is at the convention center, and I apologize, I don't know what ABCA is. Do you have any? I don't know what ABCA is. And then the other part of that dues and sponsorships is for the group travel business, which is for the 10K Missouri Group Travel Exchange, the 5K, well, that's the dollar amounts. So the Missouri Group Travel Exchange, TAP, and then Select Travel. So that's what makes up all of the money as part of that $421,000 is all those different events.
okay, I just think we're gonna keep having these discussions as long as we're thinking that, well, this kind of benefits the city more, so it should be a city expense, when in my mind, TCD should make a decision and say, here's what's good for the district. When TCD says, here's what's good for the district, then maybe the tourism tax adds on to those items that are good for the city. Because I want to believe, and maybe I'm wrong, I want to believe the TCD would voluntarily say, we want to pay for these dues and subscriptions because it's good for our district. Not versus, but this really benefits the city more than the district. Because if the city's paying in 80% of the tax, it kind of should benefit the city.
Yeah, well, and I think this is going to be new for all of us because this is the first year that we're kind of separating the dollars. So where before, it was just one pot of money. So I think we're trying to work our way through this. I know in the discussions that me and you had, I had asked you, would you like to see us put more into sports and the meetings and conventions because those impact the city? So I think that's part of where this has come from, is that discussion that we've had. As long as the stuff gets paid, because, we've made commitments to these, whether TCD pays for it or the city pays for it, I guess we just have to figure that out. The challenge that we currently have is I know the TCD budget's already been approved. So I guess we'd have to go back and try to do another amendment on their budget. So, but again, we can have these conversations. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Any of those other ones you want to highlight?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do think it is interesting, though, after having the discussion that we just had, like when Tim was up here about, traditional linear TV being at 1.1 million and digital social marketing being only 75,000. And, I get we're in a world where we're sort of moving towards that, but man, I just think we're there,
Oh, no, this is just here. So our total, give me 1 second. Now, also mind you, the CVB recommended that we spend 100% of the budget on digital.
Yeah.
That was not approved.
Fair enough.
So we did agree to a 80-20, 80% digital, 20% linear TV, per discussions that were had. That actually ended up being about, last year with the extra money we got, ended up actually being about 65-35%. There's still a strong group in town that wants traditional TV.
Hey, I realize it's going that way, and I don't disagree with none of that, but there's still a lot of people that watch TV. I see commercials on TV. yeah, the traditional TV's gone, but they've got Hulu Live, they've got YouTube TV, they've got Prime Live. I mean, they're still watching TV, just in a different streaming format. I see commercials all the time watching ABC or CBS or Fox News or whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, going away with that totally would be a big mistake.
No, sorry, Alderman Cooper, no, we put that TV in our digital spend.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so we spend, okay, so to go back to what you were saying, so our total digital spend, again, this is combined dollars of TCD and city, is 4.2 million for digital. And then it was just under 2.1 million for linear. So Alderman Cooper, to give you
What was the last figure you just give?
it's like 2.087 million for linear, and it's 4.2 million for digital.
Okay.
So just to give you an idea of specifically what you had mentioned, so we spend, sorry, this is a big chart. Okay, so where's my Netflix? Okay, so like YouTube TV, Bing, Hulu. Okay, so Hulu, for instance, we spend $325,000 to run our TV commercials on Hulu. And then we spend, and then you've got, so for like your YouTube specific, which is your streaming videos, we spend $90,000 there. Well, actually, Kathy, do you mind, because these are the ones that I sent you, do you mind if you share it with the whole board? I can resend it to you.
No, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's got the full digital media plan and the linear TV.
The breakdown and what services you're using?
Yeah,
Okay,
Rachel's
that's
very
awesome.
particular to show you exactly where it's going. So that'll show you. But yeah, so when we talk linear, that is your traditional, you are plugging a cable into the back of your TV. The problem with the linear television is you're looking at eyes, not necessarily who's viewing it. So if you go into a market, I know you know this. So if you go into a market and there's 500,000 people, you're purchasing it and you're hoping 500,000 people see it with linear. With digital TV, you can specifically, going back to like the persona for Faith Family Flag, we can specifically say, okay, 25% of Kansas City we know is that persona. Let's hit them with the Faith Family Flag commercial because we know that's what they're going to want to see. And then you can actually measure an ROI and who actually viewed it. So
even then, Jason, I think that the persona of a person watching linear TV is going to be sort of specified. I think,
yeah.
you know what I mean? I think that's going to be an older group.
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
Right. Do we account for that in which ads we're showing on?
We do. Yeah,
Okay.
we do. So like if you look at when you get the document, when you look at like the linear TV, for instance, the fall campaign for linear, that was our empty nester video because we knew that's exactly who was going to be watching it.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah.
So it may be healthy also for you to, if you would forward to Kathy, and Kathy will forward to the board, what the TCD detailed budget is, right? Let's see where all the money's going. Board, I know you're going to want to break before our Alderman meeting. Any final comments?
No, I think this was, again, this was sorry.
Oh, I just had to back up on the, totally agree on, you had mentioned the war veterans and the younger demographic, like the Desert Storm and the Gulf War and I think that's a very important market, and you're right, how do you reach them? Because we get a lot of military reunions, and I don't know that I've ever seen any that are from these eras.
Yeah.
I have seen an increase and have talked and visited with a lot of these era veterans, but not in groups.
Right.
So that is I'm glad you brought that up, and how do you do it? I don't know the answer, but they are coming. I'm seeing more and more of them come to Branson. The other thing I had was, you mentioned that y'all start Ozark Mountain Christmas marketing. The campaign kicks off October 9th.
I believe it was October 9th this year, correct, yeah. Last year it was October 28th, now it's October 9th.
That's pretty late, ain't it? I mean, that's just my opinion. Seems like a lot of people are already making Christmas plans way before then, but
Yeah,
I'm
and
just bringing that up.
And-
That's something that caught my ear.
I think what I hear from the board
We can look
is,
at it.
yeah. I mean, I think it was a real extreme last year, starting
Yeah.
marketing October 28th, when
Yeah,
our
I'm glad
season
it's
starts
earlier, but-
November 1st, yeah. And I would be remiss saying that there's a reason the Korean War is named the Forgotten War.
The Forgotten War. If you haven't seen the movie Devotion, the fighter pilots, the Korean War, unbelievable story. Of course, a sad ending, but unbelievable.
Was that with the two
story.
pilots that became buddies?
Yeah.
That's a great
I
movie.
won't ruin it for you.
That's a
but-
great- I've seen
Oh,
it.
you've seen it?
Great movie.
I wasn't expecting to go the route it did. I'm watching it on a plane.
Easy, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I'll stop.
I don't wanna hear
I'll
the
stop.
ending.
I'm sorry. Great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Any other comments from the board? Any other comments?
No, this is exactly what I was hoping for with the draft, was to have this conversation. Obviously, with drafts, you have a starting point, and then you go from there. So hopefully, we can quickly, since it's already mid-February, get some of this quicked up. And I know you said maybe we can go ahead with the co-op while we're trying to work out these other
No
details.
doubt.
Yep.
That should move, that should
Okay.
march.
Yep. So in fact, Rachel is with the representative from Madden at the conference she's at now, so we can have that conversation. And Tim is correct, I think there's some things that we have to talk about with them to make it better.
Very nice.
Yep.
And we may, just to think about, we may leave a little bit in reserve, so if we find as we go through the year, if that campaign is doing very well and could use extra funds, have some funds
Yeah.
to plug back
Yeah,
into
and,
it.
yeah, and we should have, well, there still will be, I believe, 15% of the money that won't be released until June or July. So there's definitely still will be some
Yeah.
money held, because I think we agreed to 85% and then kind of holding to 15%.
Is there a cap per business?
See, that's what I think, and
Yeah.
we've talked about this, that's, I think, what we've got to detail all that out.
Yeah, just real quick, one of my suggestions to make it fair was start with a dollar amount and offer that to everybody.
Right.
And it may be $10,000 or something. And then after that's taken, then offer another higher amount. And then after that's taken, so you don't end up with 10 businesses taking it all, offering it across the board
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Jason, is there a threshold that, like a number that, a minimum, like for a show, like a smaller show, like, is there a minimum number that they have to come to?
Yeah,
Just
this,
to make it feasible?
yeah, this time it was,
Was
It
it
was- it was a-
2,500?
I think it was 2,500 for 3 months. So I think you had to
Yeah.
commit to 7,500.
I think that's right.
And we do know, again, as some of the feedback, there were some that, couldn't commit to that. So there was a question if some of the shows that don't have quite the same amount of revenue, like, could they pool their money together? At the time, that was a no, because we didn't know how to do that. Again, it's been successful, so we know the base is successful. How can we grow it from there?
Well, like, for instance, like, I think about the Little Opry Theater, and you got individual shows that are smaller budget, smaller, kind of revenue generators. Like,
Yeah.
is there an umbrella where, like, 3 or 4 of those could come together and just promote the Little Opera,
Yeah, and that's what we've got to figure out. And I know that dollar amount was what was recommended by Madden. They were the ones that said, you at least need to spend that per month for it to make a difference. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money. So, but how can we, for the smaller shows, allow them, to put their money together and kind of make it work?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, we could put all 4 million into the co-op if you guys want. That'd be easy.
All in favor? Okay. We
That's easy,
We got one vote in the back. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the study session.
Motion, Mr. Mayor.
Did somebody make a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason, thank you very much.